thing I shouldn't do before I came, and that was to wear mascara. Because of the stories of the folks who run the Foundations for Life, the counselors, the ultrasonographers, the doctors, and the stories of survival and true hope and change always move me to tears. You, each and every one of you here who supports Foundation for Life, are the ultimate agents of hope and change. In the name of God, you offer hope for our future, hope for life, and you change hearts and change minds through the power of your faith, through the power of persuasion, and with the use of divinely inspired technology. I've written many times over the years about the power of ultrasound, which provides a window to the womb. And I have supported the work of many crisis pregnancy centers all across this country. You know, we're represented by a majority in Washington, D.C. that claims to defend the oppressed, the underprivileged, the victims in our society, the poor, the minorities. They pay lip service to it, and yet they take so many actions and so much inaction in defending life from birth to natural death. Of course, while we're all here outside of the Beltway, you all know what's going on in the Capitol right now. As we speak, they are debating a government health care takeover bill. And there has been quite a conflict and a battle over the very issue that we're all here gathered to combat, the evils of abortion. I don't know how it's all going to play out with particular amendments that the Democrats have offered at the last minute, sponsored by pro-life Democrat Bart Stupak. But I can tell you this, I agree with GOP Representative Chris Smith, who said earlier today on the House floor that abortion is neither health care nor reform. As the quote-unquote debate, the hurry-up debate that began today on a rare Saturday session in Congress began, the Democrats lined up a long parade of female congressional representatives from their side, and each of them offered their unanimous consent requests and editorialized each and every single time about why they believed that Obamacare, Pelosi care, whatever you call it, government health care monstrosity, was good for women and children, each and every one of these female Democrats. Nancy Pelosi has crusaded, as a fresh voice of hope and change, and used her gender, exploited her gender, as a way to distinguish herself as a champion of the underprivileged and the poor, the minorities, and the children. And yet, their policies have done everything to undermine the safety and the security of our children and unborn children. There is such a deception and a deceit about who in Washington stands up for life, and it's up to each and every one of us to provide sunlight and to shed truth about the true champions for hope and change and life. There is a culture of death that we must combat, and a culture of corruption, which I've written about in my latest book. And it is quite troublesome that this administration continues to employ a science czar, John Holdren, who has been on record over the last 3 decades, musing openly and championing forced mass sterilization of women that they, the technocrats, deem, quote-unquote, undesirable. That we have a so-called science czar who has advocated for mass sterilizations, forced abortions, taking away children from the so-called undesirables. And the spirit and the ghost of eugenicist Margaret Sanger hangs over this administration like a very dark, dark cloud. Very few voices in the mainstream media where I work have raised objections to the presence of this man in this administration. If every single pro-life activist raised their voices in opposition to a man like this, imagine the hope and change that might result. In my book, I write a lot about the czar explosion and this orchestrated and calculated circumvention of the Senate advice and consent role by the Obama administration, which has now installed more czars than the Romanov dynasty had.